Well, that's good. Probably just like catch me at the right time. Yeah, this was a problem last night in the computer lab next door too. That like the AC is just not very in here right now. And of course, they made it so you can't open windows in this room. But you know what I can do? I can prop the door open. At least get some air through that. It feels a little better than when I first got it. But the concert will be, and then Wednesday, following the it's she was like, as a reminder, I'll be seeing you all Wednesday at 2:30 in class. Where? And I'm guessing it doesn't say on Blackboard. First, they were like, we're still determining where we're gonna be. The second one was like, reminder, be in class on Wednesday. Where? Where? Oh. The fun question is, will the form that I cleared the other day still be cleared? Always a delight. Yeah, I mean, like, I've never had as many problems with Google Drive until this year, and what I think it might be is the Wi-Fi is so bad in this building that like it's not even saving when I do stuff. So after the days, because mine's right. Okay. Yay, it stayed clear. All right. Okay.
Okay, it's 10. There's not many people here in person. I do see some folks here and also some folks on Zoom. Today, the first thing that we're gonna do is an assignment, a group assignment about fallacies and biases. And so this is to sort of like start wrapping your head a little bit around the ideas you're gonna be using in your poster topic. And also just look at some of the stuff we've been using. This one's kind of a fun assignment. You get to sort of scour the internet to find examples. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'll make 2 or 3 groups in class and then 2 groups on Zoom. And so if you go to Blackboard assignments, it is the second one down. It's called Fallacies and Biases assignment. Sometimes I call things easy to remember things. When you click on it, what you'll find is this, and I'll give you a group number as I come around. So each one will have a fallacy and find an example of it online. And then you will have a fallacy and you'll have a bias. And for each of them, you'll find examples online and then explain why this is problematic. So let's see, Zoom folks, looks like there's quite a few of you today. Let me go ahead and get my breakout room stuff set up here. Let me see if I have enough for that. Yeah, so if everyone's willing to participate in a enthusiastic way, we can actually do 3 Zoom groups and then we'll do 2 groups in person. And that will give us all 5 of the groups. So people on Zoom, make sure you get that link off of Blackboard, the fallacies and biases assignment, and then pay attention to the group number you're assigned as you go into your Zoom breakout room. And then I will bring you back at some point. When it looks like everybody's kind of done, I'll keep an eye on the Google Doc. So the group number or the room number you're put into on Zoom will be your group number. So that's the first room will be group 1, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so pay attention to your room number and that's your group on the assignment. And you could just type right on the assignment. All right, and then for folks in person, let's have the back 4 be group 4 and then the front 3 be group 4. So go ahead and get with your groups and actually like talk to each other. I know when it's on Google Docs, it's real easy to be like, I don't need to talk, I'll just type. But I'd really like you to actually communicate with each other. And as you're working, for those of you who are here. And if you find like pictures or memes, you can copy paste those in or just link to them. Hey Connor, why don't you come up and join the front group here?
Professor Myers, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was about to text that I couldn't talk, but all right, we can talk.
Okay, cool. Are you done in your group or do you need me to put you back in there?
No, I'm done.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, I'm looking over the doc and looks like everybody's doing great, so keep going. Make sure you do both your fallacy and your bias, and feel free to copy paste pictures or link videos or any examples that you find online. I would say another 5-ish minutes probably. All right, I'm gonna give, it looks like people are kind of typing their last bits here, so I'm gonna give you all about another minute. And then I'll bring the Zoom folks back and we'll talk through everything. Alrighty, welcome back, Zoom folks. So for each Zoom group, I'm gonna invite you to speak out loud. If you can't, just either let me know in the chat or I guess just don't talk and then I will. So our first group, I believe was Rowan and Lauren. I should have the breakout room box open so I know. Yay, good memory. Okay.
Cool. So we're gonna go through it, like I'll go through the fallacy and then Lauren will go through the bias.
Perfect.
So our fallacy was the straw man, which is misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier for them to attack. So we looked online to see if we could find any pertinent examples by way of, politics, since this seemed like something that would be, more typically seen within that because you're constantly debating people in any kind of forum. So we found the examples of someone wanting to restrict the sale of assault weapons, and a straw man argument would ask, why do you want to take away everyone's guns? Right. And the argument isn't, oh, well, we're taking away everyone's guns. It's we're taking away a specific type of gun. And to go along with that, we have something to the effect of climate change. So when someone is offering various regulations that will counter the effect of climate change, which could be burdensome to business for some individuals, that straw man argument would be to the effect of, why are you denying that climate change exists? Right.
Yeah.
Very easy to just say, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just saying this doesn't exist and that this isn't necessary. And
that's great. I like that y'all showed them from like both sides of the aisle because it's definitely used by everybody.
oh yeah, 100%. And to go into why that's problematic, there's quite a few reasons why, but we put these 5 below. So the first one is that it's misrepresenting the argument that's contradictory to your own. You're just taking their point and kind of changing it to fit whatever narrative you either have about that individual or about the topic in general. The next big problem is that it provides unfounded support to your point through being the better alternative, where you're showing how theirs is applying in a much more negative sense, where, oh, well, you want to do this to all these people. I'm not saying that. And that goes kind of hand in hand with the next point of it's very hyperbolic, where it's not necessarily, if you're debating something that affects a small group of individuals, you'll make it look like it's something that's affecting the world. Also tends to very much overgeneralize the point that was made by the opposition, where, it's, again, one specific issue, but you're turning into language where it's like, well, that's not the case. We're not talking about this. We're talking about all of this other stuff. And then finally, it's kind of preying on emotions, where if you're sitting there and you're having a discussion, a debate, what have you, and you're bringing up how their idea is very poor and it's not thought out well, and you're just going to be affecting all these people in all these poor ways, and you're denying all this other stuff, you're 100% going to be preying on the emotions of the opposition, most likely through agitation.
Right. And then you can almost do another straw man, or it's technically a different thing, but they're like, oh, why are you so emotional? Look how irrational you are, right? Yeah, so I think that's such a good point. I mean, it's not quite a straw man, but the example that popped to my mind in pop culture is everyone saying, oh, you know, Taylor Swift really put that football player on the map when he has like 2 Super Bowl rings, right? So yeah, I think that, you know, this is used quite a bit by people on both sides of the political aisle. And yeah, the whole point is to get people riled up. Great, great. Okay. Lauren, go ahead and walk us through the sunk cost fallacy.
Okay, so the sunk cost fallacy is you irrationally cling to things that have already cost you something. So basically, it says when you've invested like your time, money, and emotions in something, and it just hurts to let it go. So one example we found was choosing to finish like a boring movie because you already paid for the ticket, and then another was keeping an incompetent employee on staff rather than replacing them because the company has already invested tens of thousands of dollars in training them. So this can be problematic because it pushes for results based on effort, not accuracy, and then it clings to old ideology, and then keeping poor plans operational rather than improving, and then it's a victim of typical human nature of returning to old ways, so like emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on. And again, the example that comes to mind as you're talking about it is cults, right? So people who join cults often invest not only their time, their energy, but a lot of money. So for example, some people wouldn't call Scientology a cult, I do, right? And you spend thousands of dollars to take classes. And so by the time you get to the point that you find out their whole premise is this alien named Xenu came to Earth and created humans, which is their actual premise, you've invested tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so like a lot of people don't leave because they're like, even though this is really dumb, I'm invested, right? And exactly like Lauren was saying, that then like gets you stuck. Yeah, excellent job, y'all. Alrighty, so group 2 was Elijah and Gabriella. And Gabriella let me know her mic doesn't work. So Elijah, if you are cool with walking through both, if not, I can walk through one of them.
I can do both. I forgot to write something for bias. I thought that was a separate group, so that's with me. But I can I can just read. So our fallacy was the fallacy. An example of that would be like, well, there's not any like specific like test or anything, but this example I found online was person A or Alex says your argument contained a straw man, so you're wrong, and then the person he's talking to, Bob, responds, it's wrong of you to assume that my argument is wrong just because it contains a fallacy. So that means that you're wrong and my original argument was right. And you can see the issues in that because it's kind of meta and you could compound that infinitely because then I guess just in the name, it could be the fallacy, and so forth. So if I say something is wrong based on um it being based on a fallacy, then that person could say that me doing that is a fallacy, and then they could respond again that me saying that them saying that is a fallacy, and then it could just go on forever. Another reason that is problematic is that it has the potential to force an argument into two extreme ends. So if someone invalidates another person's initial claim due to it being fallacious, person that feels invalidated may rebuttal, suggesting that they do the exact or total opposite thing. So an example I used is if Professor Myers were to say that she heard a personal trainer suggest working out twice a day to maintain physical fitness is essential, and I disagreed, saying that that was fallacious, then Professor Myers could go and say that I should lay in bed all day and eat unhealthily to uphold my physical fitness. And so while it's like it kind of is an argument to no end, it also can force an argument into two severe extremes.
Yeah, so
And
you can get the 2 extremes. You can get a lot of like snippiness and sarcasm, which never
yeah,
makes for a, you know, well-reasoned argument, right?
and for our bias was groupthink, and I see Gabby put something in here now. And so an example found online is that the leader of a group is telling everyone that they need to ban all members of a particular ethnic group from joining them, and the members of this group accepting that decision, accept that decision without questioning it. And obviously that's problematic for multiple reasons. And you see it often in like militant types of thought. So like if you think about like any kind of like totalitarian or like the Nazis or the Stanford prison experiment are two pretty good examples of groupthink because people were just told what to do and then they did it and suffered like very severe consequences for it. And it's problematic because it causes people to ignore their opposing viewpoints and it silences other opposing viewpoints and it creates the illusion that members of the group are in agreement when they may not actually be all of the same thought.
Yeah, yeah, and that's such a good point. And this can happen, yeah, again, in any sort of militant or tight-knit group. The example I'm thinking in my head, and I think some of you may have taken my psych and film course with me in a J term. And we watched the film Black Klansman, which is based on a true
Yeah.
story. And like the people in the KKK, like they start out just being like, this is a club, we want to do some cross burnings. And then like a couple people are like, no, we want to be violent. And then everyone kind of follows along. So yeah, great examples. Excellent job, guys. All right, and then group 3, I believe, was Aishia and let me see who the other person was. Daryl. So go ahead and walk us through.
Okay, our fallacy is the gambler's fallacy, basically believing that runs occur to statistically independent phenomena. So the example we have is the Monte Carlo Casino. Black landed 26 times. So more people started to bet on red, thinking it had to come or it was due since it was so much black, even though every single time you roll the table or whatever, it is a independent event.
Right.
So a multitude of people ended up losing their entire life savings due to this fallacy.
Ooh.
It's problematic because it promotes an illogical thinking process. It tries to use past events to predict future ones, even though the two things are independent. And like I said, it can cause people to lose their money and belongings, but it can also be seen in less extreme settings, like people wanting to have another baby because they have a girl and they want a boy. So since they have a girl, a boy should come next.
Right. And this is how you get families that have like 4 girls, right? Because they're like, no, we're gonna get a boy this time. Yeah, excellent. Good example. Yeah, and the Monte Carlo case is so sad. Yeah, and this happens to folks all the time with gambling, right? If I just, try one more time, it's gonna happen. And unfortunately, that's not how chance works. And in fact, when you're gambling, the vast majority of the games are heavily skewed in the direction of the casino, right? And so like, it's not just 50-50. It's like there are other things going on that's going to make it harder. Excellent. Cool. All right. So tell us about your bias.
Our bias is the just world hypothesis, which is basically saying that like we believe that the world is like fair, but it has consequences like because of our actions. So like if someone has something bad happen to them, then they must have done something wrong. And our example would be like if somebody was struggling with a rare disease and they must have done something wrong and they're being punished for it. The bias is problematic because people come to understanding that bad things happen to bad people and good things happen to good people. This bias is used to rationalize bad things that happen as the recipient deserving the negative or bad action. This is used in our history to allow terrible injustice to occur to many minority groups.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Well, if that's happening to them, it's because they're horrible people. One of the ways we unfortunately see this most commonly in our society still is survivors of abuse, whether that's sexual assaults, sexual abuse, physical abuse, right? People always try to say, oh, well, that person did something to bring that on themselves. Like, why didn't you leave? Or what did you do to make your abuser mad? Or what were you wearing, right? Because the idea is if I can come up with one of those excuses and say, oh yeah, that's what happened, then I wouldn't do that. So it wouldn't happen to me, right? And then of course the problem is people who have been abused internalize that and blame themselves when of course it's never their fault. It's always the abuser's fault. All righty. Next up, group 4. So our group in the back, Ella, Olivia, Amia, and Ayana, go ahead and tell us about your fallacy. Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I love this little meme you all found. People died of cancer before cigarettes invented, so smoking doesn't cause cancer, right? One of the things I've seen this in, one of the things I'm very passionate about, again, after having, I was always like, protect kids at all costs. But like, especially since I've had my kiddo, right, it's even amplified. And there are a lot of well-meaning people, but who refuse any sort of medical care for themselves or their infants during the childbirth process. And they won't even get like the vitamin K shot. And what the vitamin K shot does is prevent bleeding on the brain, which can be really hard to detect in an infant. And someone online was like, I don't understand, like if we never had the vitamin K shot before, and it's like, yeah, and unfortunately a lot of babies die, right? So again, like just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it. Yeah, and we got that with a lot of scientific things, climate change, COVID, right? People are like, what do you mean climate change, or what do you mean global warming? It's nice and cold today, right? And it's like, that's not how any of this works. Great job. Okay, your bias. Yeah, we shouldn't be judging on physical attractiveness. We shouldn't be generalizing from that, right? And this can happen with other aspects of people too, right? So there are people who really like certain politicians, and because of that, they feel like those politicians can do no wrong. And this certainly, again, happens on both sides of the aisle, right? It's like, well, they did such good for us on this. And it's like, but they committed war crimes, or they did, they have all these accusations against them, or, they've sexually harassed people in the past. And so, yeah, the halo effect can just make you ignore all the bad stuff about a person. I mean, this happens to a lot of people in personal relationships as well, right? Where you sort of ignore those red flags because you're like, no, but this is a good person. I love them. Yeah. Alrighty, group 5, our group up front here. So tell us about your fallacy.
So we have ad hominem, which is just attacking the character of your opponent rather than their argument. So we have a little open there, and then there's a very short video.
If it's short, I can click on it. Oh, perfect. If it loads,
What is ad hominem? Definition. Bypassing the argument by launching an irrelevant attack on the person and not their claim. Example. Anyone that says we should build the ground zero mosque is an American hating liberal.
Learn more about logical fallacies and why logical fallacies.
I love it. And so you can see, if you just look down the side, if you ever get stuck on any of these fallacies or biases, just YouTube search them and you'll find probably 5 videos about each. Nice. That's great.
And then we said that this is problematic because, you're not actually making your own things or, nor you trying to speak anybody else's, you're just taking like the job. It's not.
Right. And again, as you all are very familiar, we see this a lot in American politics, right? Even though it doesn't really like advance anything. All right. And who wants to explain the bias?
Mechanism is our bias, and basically it says, you remember the past that better than the past, and expect future to be worse than so the exhibit we found online is kind of diagram we found, but on 2 days.
Awesome.
What is definism? Definition. The predisposition to view the past favorably, rosy retrospective, and future negatively.
Yeah, so just real quick, this is like where people say hindsight is 20/20 or rose-colored glasses, things like that.
Example. Definism has been found to be rather widespread in the United Kingdom. In a 2015 survey, 70% of Britons agreed with the statement that things are worse than they used to be, even though at the time Britons were in fact richer, healthier, and longer living than ever before.
Want to learn more?
It also makes me think of the like "Make America Great Again" slogan, because like when was America great? Like when we owned people, when we were massacring indigenous people, like when. My husband is like, it's the Cracker Barrel general store, like that's the America, quote unquote, they want to go back, so it's not real. I kind of like his vibe on that, but yeah, I mean, and again, not to just poke fun at Trump, there are people who say that stuff on all sides of the aisle, right?
We said that this bias is problematic because it goes against evidence and it creates a pessimistic mindset and that's.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so interesting because you find this in surprising places. So a few semesters back, my Psych 380 students and I did a study where we asked people, how did you feel about your body before the pandemic? How do you feel right now? And then imagine you're going to be on like a Zoom call. How would you feel about your appearance then? And we thought people would get more anxious about their appearance on the Zoom call. But in fact, the Zoom call and now were identical. And everyone thought that their body was better before the pandemic. And maybe it was. I know a lot of people gained weight during the pandemic. And unfortunately, traditionally in our society, that equals bad, right? But I also think it's like people are like, well, everything was better before the pandemic, right? So definitely something that comes into play there. Great job. So yeah, these are the types of things you'll be talking about with your myths and that you'll be talking about for your overall poster, which I'm going to go over in more detail in just a second here. If you're interested in these fallacies and biases, I got all the downloads for these from this website. It's called thethinkingshop.org. They do sell stuff, but if you just scroll down to the bottom of the page, all you need to do is put in your email address and you can download all this stuff for free. They're a nonprofit, so they do that for educational purposes, but they have posters and card games, things along those lines. Alrighty, so I was going to start talking about APA style, but we don't have a ton of time left, so I'll do that sometime next week. And what I wanted to do is just take a minute to talk a little bit more and kind of remind y'all about the poster project. If the syllabus will load, there we go. Just because I know that the longer projects can be hard to keep in mind, right? So let me kind of scroll down here. All right. So you're not going to write a paper about this. You're going to create a psychological scientific poster, which is a visual portrayal of data and information. You're gonna focus on either a controversy or a myth in psychology. So lots of good examples here. The myth that we only use 10% of our brain. Someone last time did the myth of the alpha male wolf, because that whole thing is based off of like one pack of captive wolves. And when they've observed wolves in nature, there's no alpha, there's no beta, right? It's just not a thing. You could do, some of the controversies around things like mesmerism or behaviorism. An excellent one to do, but a heartbreaking and hard one to do would be to talk about the APA and how they have admitted that they were engaged in very racist and sometimes eugenic things for years, right? A few years back, maybe about 10 years ago now that I think about it, the APA also came under fire because it turns out the head of the APA ethics committee was one of the people and several other psychologists who designed the quote unquote advanced interrogation program for folks post 9/11, which if you're not familiar with what that fancy term means, it was how they tortured and waterboarded people to try to get information from them. So psychologists who the first thing in our ethics code is do no harm were the ones who designed that, and like APA was like implicit. So a lot of people left APA at that point in time. So definitely some controversies there. And so typically what happens is you would print these and walk around to them just to save trees and time and money. What we've done in my class is just put them up on the screen, and each person just talks about them for 5-ish minutes. And so, again, very wide ranging. I mean, you can go back to Trephination when they used to drill holes in people's skulls who were crazy to let the evil spirits out, right? You can do something very modern, like like how many units of things can we remember that we talked about, right? So you summarize your issue and try to include arguments from both sides of the issues. And, just like we did today, see what you can find from pop culture, right? Where is this referenced? And then define and describe 2 cognitive biases that are part of this, and describe 2 logical fallacies that are part of this. So again, going to that website, and I'm pretty sure I have that link somewhere on Blackboard, can help you do that. And then part of this is going to be finding articles. We're going to start working on that together in class next week. And this is why we did our library session with Stephen earlier in the semester. And so you'll review the major points of the studies and discuss how they inform your understanding of what happened or what is happening, if it's a current one. Have some sort of visual representation. So a graph from one of the studies, a pie chart, if you have like a photo, something along those lines, a meme, right? Anything, just to make it more visually interesting. And then on your conclusion, you're going to have sort of a recommendation of like, how can we address this? How can we get this out of the public knowledge, right? Something like learning styles would be a great one to do, right? And how on earth can we convince teachers these are not a thing? You can poke around and find a couple references for your topic. Again, we're going to do that in class next week if you want to wait a minute to turn in your topic. And then in about a month, you'll have an outline of your topic. Basically, your outline, you can just copy paste this and then put in little bullet points saying how you're going to address that for yours. And then you're going to have till the beginning of December to get it in there. And then during our exam time, we're going to do a brief presentation. So again, I think a lot of people have been sort of confused about it, and I wanted to take a minute. I also have the grading rubric I'm going to use right here, so you know exactly what I'm looking for. I'd want to be as transparent as possible. Alrighty, great job today. Thank you for engaging with biases. I almost said fallacies, biases and fallacies. And everybody have a great weekend. I will see y'all on Monday.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.